and one of the guys that I think can help them is offensively. And you wrote an article about it because I think it's a question or something that has bothered Komets fans throughout the year, and this kind of revealed perhaps why Matthew Curado's been struggling. But your article, what's wrong with Matthew Curado? And basically it goes back to the fact that the guy's had a bad back that hasn't ever fully recovered.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, and he's a typical hockey player. He doesn't want to come out of the lineup, and he'll try to play through anything. I mean, those guys, that's what they do. And, you know, and sometimes we see this stuff that the fans don't, because we see Matthew before the game wearing a hot pad, and after the game wearing a hot pad, and sitting in the whirlpool and getting worked on by Steve Grogg, the massage therapist, and all that kind of stuff that fans don't see. I mean, this guy has really tried to get it figured out, and he had to end up taking the shot, and that seemed to help. And I thought he looked better this weekend. He still, you know, I mean, I thought he was much more active defensively this weekend than he'd been this year. He was able to get to the hits for once. He looked quicker. He just looked more aggressive. We'll see how it maintains from here.
In talking to Matthew about that story, what did he say was the biggest, not the cause of the injury, but what has it affected the most? I mean, you obviously can't get the speed. You obviously can't hit somebody if you can't get the speed the way that he would like to. What has it affected the most, and how has he seen his game change or kind of go a little bit downhill because of the back injury?
Well, he can't loosen up his legs. I mean, he just can't get the speed generated. You know what it's like for us after we've worked really hard for a day and then going out drinking or whatever, and then we try to get out of bed the next morning. That's kind of like he was.
That never happened.
No.
Especially after a Bears game where they lose the Packers.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. He feels like Jay Cutler every day.
Well, that's got to be a horrible feeling. For a lot of reasons.
He talks. You know, these guys try to sleep on the bus, and you know they get home at 5 or 6 in the morning, and then try to sleep for a few hours, and then you know you don't have a normal schedule, which anybody who's over age 30 knows what that does to your back when you don't have a routine or a normal sleeping pattern, and these guys don't, and that just further aggravated it. But I mean, I'd see him stretch and stretch and stretch trying to get his legs loosened up, and he just couldn't do it. It just wasn't working, and I think you could tell because Matthew was skating straight up the whole time this year, and that's not him. He's always been over looking, and he's like a shark out there looking for a place to attack, and he's always aggressive. But this year he wasn't able to do that. He was just skating straight up because his back just wouldn't allow him.
So that's an injury that it's getting better, but perhaps may never be fully recovered till after the season.
I don't know. It'd be interesting. I mean, I saw a big difference in him this weekend.
Good.
We'll see. I mean, a lot of this has got to be confidence in the back too. I mean, if you don't have confidence in your back, that's hard to overcome.
All right, this week, kind of one of the Komets' big trips of the year as far as the road goes, taking a big trip south, going to play in Shreveport on back-to-back nights, going to take a trip to Texas the next night. What would be considered a successful road trip, and how are the Komets approaching a trip like this, knowing that, okay, they caught the Icemen 2 weeks ago, now they're 4 points behind and going on the road for 3, although they have been pretty good on the road compared to how good they've been at home.
Oh, they've been great on the road compared to how good they've been at home.
I was trying to say it nicely.
1-3-3. I mean, come on, that's just awful. You know what? They got to win at least 2 out of 3 again. I mean, they if they had won 3 games last weekend, then they could have gone in and said, okay, if we go 1-2 on this road trip, we're okay. Well, they blew that. They've got to win 2 out of 3. They've got to make their mark. They've got to start gaining some confidence and gaining some momentum again. They've got to start impressing some of these other teams too, that, you know, we are for real. They got to prove it to themselves, and they got to prove it to these other teams too.
I also want to give a big shout out to Guy Dupuis, a couple of goals on Saturday night. So you got to feel good about that. After playing 1,000 games, the guy can still score some goals.
Well, and he was also the direct result of a couple goals against that night too. So he's got to be careful with that.
You are downing me today.
I'm sorry, but it's just
you walked in with a Bears hat and you can't help yourself.
But I mean, that's part of the problem is some guys will do something at one end and then they totally blow it at the other end, and it is a full ice game. You know, that's kind of the problem right now. Is you've got guys who are cheating towards one end. Don't forget about this end, and don't leave your goalies hanging out to dry.
All right, it will be a very interesting week as the Komets head down to Louisiana for a couple And to Texas.
And we have a fascinating story coming on Friday's paper about why the Texas Brahmas are the Brahmas and what that means. You'll really get a kick out of it. It's got a huge Komets tie to it that nobody knows. You'll have a lot of fun with it.
All right, that'll be in the paper and the News Sentinel, and of course we'll keep you in tune with all things Komets on our website, wayne.com. But thanks for watching another edition of Inside the Zone. He's Blake, I'm Glenn. We'll see you next week.